Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last session of the Circular Open Studios. Just so you know, we're going to be recording the session, and if all non-speakers can please turn off their cameras, that would be very much welcome because it is distracting. So, for example, we have someone on the screen at the moment, a participant. If you can please turn off your camera, that would be great. Otherwise, we're going to have to take you out and you'll have to rejoin without your camera. Welcome. We have some amazing speakers today. Like I said, we're going to be recording the session. And really the Circular Open Studios has been an amazing opportunity to build the community really around sustainable design, around circular uses of materials, discussions about systems, how we can discuss with other partners and discuss with other businesses about what we're going to do in terms of our creative principles and what we love to do, as well as actually kind of leading this further into the future and making less environmental impact. The whole of this studio series was related to design with care. So we had three core topics, and I'm going to pass it over to my colleague from British Council UK, Parvinder. So if you want to join us.
Thanks, Zoe. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Yeah, I thought we'd just give a quick intro to the programme that Circular Open Studios kind of sits within. So it's a programme that operates in EU Europe called Circular Cultures, and it works across 9 countries. And within that, we've got different kind of ways of working. So we've got residencies, we've got a university challenge, we do an annual conference that my colleague Maria will tell you about in a second. But yeah, it's a really amazing program. Last year we piloted the Circular Open Studios, and the idea is that we try and connect different countries as well. So we've got our programming in each country, and that we want to create opportunities for people to share learnings across those countries, and we want to support emerging designers within that space. So this is where that kind of opportunity came from. What's exciting is, the themes that we look at, they go from language around circular sustainable practice. So, we might not use circular and the word sustainable in a lot of these countries, but we want to explore that with you. Topics like climate, ecological systems. So yeah, really excited for today's programme. And I'm going to hand to my colleague Maria, who will tell you a bit about an upcoming programme that we've got in Greece. Maria?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Parvinder. Thank you, Zoe. As Parvinder said, we have been organizing an international conference focusing on circular design and sustainability for the last 5 years as part of the Circular Cultures program in the EU. This is a program that we have been organizing in collaboration with the ONAS Foundation and the ONAS Cultural Center, which is one of the biggest cultural centers in Greece. This will be the 5th edition of the program. It will be a 2-day hybrid conference on the 20th and 21st of March in Athens, featuring UK, European and other international speakers, sharing case studies and hosting masterclasses and workshops. As Parvinder said, the conference, as well as the program as a whole, seeks to showcase UK sustainability and cultural leadership and create new networks between Europe and Britain around sustainability and circularity, while strengthening arts and culture networks for individual practices and organizations. This year edition aims to ignite a new way of thinking around architecture, design, crafts, and technology. And we will be exploring the intersections between rural, urban, local, the local and the global systems towards a more connected circular solutions, as well as examine different typologies for sustainable placemaking, the community, the island, the forest, the residency. So I don't want to take any more of your time. I would like to invite you, everyone, to join us online on the 20th of March. Registrations will open on the 1st of March, and my colleagues will be sharing the links with you. I think it will be a really fascinating two-day program. So I hope to see you there. Enjoy the Open Studio today, and well done everyone for organizing this.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was a really good and important to kind of see where this program has been situating, where it is going forward from now, and more opportunities to participate and connect with one another. Our first speaker, we just had a little switch around. So if you've seen the lineup, we just had a little switch around. So we're actually going to be joined first by Sanne Muiser from the Netherlands, who's going to be discussing her practice as well as an incredible project called Retracing the Coffee Bags. So Sanne, if you'd like to join us. Oh, it's so lovely to see your face.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hello. Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I mean, it's been really lovely to kind of have our conversations about your work. So I'm very much looking forward to you being able to tell us about what you're doing, and then also give us a little tour.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward as well. Shall I just simply start?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then
kick us off.
Yeah, and let's have a conversation later on. Like we have time for that, hopefully. Let's share my screen and please let me know if the presentation. Let's see. I think I'm there. I need to fill it up. Yeah. Here we go. Is it full screen now?
Perfect. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks again for the invite. Oh, there we go. I need to, please don't go too fast. Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is, sorry. We have to do it again. Yeah, here we go. My name is Sanne Muiser. I'm the owner of Studio Pluis. And Studio Pluis is actually, if you translate it into English, it's Studio Fluff. It's this tiny little thing, and the moment you touch it, it changes shape. And that absolutely fascinates me. It's so tiny, but you need a lot, and they need to collaborate with each other to become a surface, or maybe a fabric, or a textile. I'm based in Eindhoven, graduated from Design Academy Eindhoven. I'm in the intersection between design, art, and research. Today, I will talk about two projects. One of my own studio, that's ongoing project, and the other one where I have a collaboration with Rosanna Escobar and Alexander Marinas, and it's called Retracing the Coffee Bag. We joined forces there. But let's first see where I started and how actually it's all clinging together. I started with this big need of being touched and the need to touch, this haptic need. And actually, the moment I started to graduate, I was really in big need of having this, a second skin surrounding me, yeah, actually, I was a little bit fearful to graduate anyway. So, I had to do that. And I had to make a second skin. And I was really looking into skin. And literally, intuitively, I found the needle felting technique. And actually, one needle is a sort of one tactile corpuscle, like one membrane to touch it. And it was not one. In the end, graduating, I did it all by hand, or many of my friends, 16 people were helping me for 2 weeks to actually make those skins. I call them second skins. It's a remnant of fur. And I used all kinds of wool, like alpaca, camel, merino, and to make these skins. For instance, here in the front, it's tassel wool with steel, hemp, flax all together, and then you have a sort of marble marble, and it's all sort of the need to touch. Also, when this is on show, people always want to feel, and it's nice actually to have a sort of material experiment, or to see what your material can do by literally having the audience allowance to touch it. So this was the work, and here it actually all started. So I had my skins. I was covered in a sort of touch, and I was in touch with material. But then again, my fantasies went on, and I had this feeling of like being in relation with the landscape, having my machine there, because this was all handwork, and it took forever in a way. But actually being in the land and start to needle felt and start to produce. So this was the ideal, and I didn't know, of course, back then, and now we're talking about 5-6 years ago, that it actually really is happening. I was first searching for a machine, and I wanted to build it myself by a robot arm, and then like you could needle felt a little bit here, and you could needle felt a little bit there. But then that is a nice idea, but a very expensive one. So I went a little bit closer, and I found my dream machine on wheels, and it's needle felting machine. It's 120 white, and the lovely thing about the technique of needle felting is that it keeps the material so pure. So you really see the fiber on fiber on fiber. And also what I found very tricky is intuitively, I started to touch that technique with raw fibers. But if you look into the way it's used, it's most, this technique, to say it's most moving blanket, like it's a sort of a cheap technique, but it's so beautiful. So you can do so much things with it. So in that way, I'm always like, I'm trying to push the needle felting technique because it's just a wonderful one. Here I come more and more focused on the landscape, and this is flax in combination also with tassel wool, and it's just the natural fiber, pure as it is here in the Dutch landscapes. Traveling around the world with the former works and being exhibiting in all kinds of places all around the world, in Canada, Vancouver, New York, Kentucky, Switzerland, Stockholm, Sweden, of course Milano. You meet up also with many, and most of them women, but also men who have their flock and their sheep, and they're taking care of their flock, and then you hear everywhere the same story: my wool is not worth anything. And then you're a little bit like, how does this work then? How can you say wool, the value of wool, it's related to sheep, it's related to the landscape, but how does this work? So 3 years ago, I decided I need to know more about it, about this relationship, about this whole cycle. How does this work? How are we related to the soil? And so I became a shepherd. So next to a designer, you can read a book, but you can also do it. And I actually very recommend it to everyone. Just put your hands into the dirt and start doing it. And so, yeah, from my top shepherd, I got this. I borrowed the dog, and I got a big car, and then my flock was out. Here in the Netherlands, you have being a shepherd is, like the Netherlands is like a stamp, so it's really small. And then there are a few Dutch landscapes, what is really the heritage, and they are taken care of with, for instance, flock. And why do they do it? Because they're grazing. Their mouth is so gentle, so the grazing takes care of the land, and that's why, for instance, all those flowers and beauties came along again. So everything, like the whole landscape came alive. All different kind of flowers, all different kind of insects, so that attracts the birds. So there starts a whole ecosystem around it by simply grazing. And yes, of course, this is the golden stuff, the moisturizer also. So next to the grazing, some animals are also enjoying this part to feed the soil. what I've noticed by being a shepherd is there are so, like it's very hard labor, but there is also so many things you need to do to actually take care of the land and to take care of the soil and so to take care of your flock, because yeah, you have to take care of them, of course. And then this whole conclusion of valuing wool by putting a price on it, but looking from a perspective, for instance, from fashion perspective, like what's the micronage, like what is it, what is the marine, like is it merino quality? No. All right, then let's put it aside. That is for me, becoming a shepherd now, a really strange way of thinking about value and thinking about what is needed, and thinking about what is needed to actually to see it as a preciousness. You shouldn't see, don't put the money on it in that way. So, because, as a designer, I think in design process. So together with the shepherd where I was working for, I connected my thinking to his wool, and so we start washing it. I start needle felting it, but then big industrial. So these were sort of the steps. We shaved the sheep, we let it wash, but big industrially. I carded it, and then it got into big needle felted pieces, all 350 kilometers around the Netherlands. I really wanted to do it locally, but industrially. And industrially, I mean, it was really a big amount of kilos that I needed to get into the washing stations. And that's not possible for every shepherd. For him it was, but we needed to try it anyway. Just think, try what comes out. And for now, it's been picked up by many architects. So this is, for instance, one of them. It's in a kitchen and also a living room. So it's a sort of dividing piece between kitchen and living room. It's sound reducing. And if you look closely, but I will show later, the hay and the straws are still in. I didn't bleach it. I didn't want it. I really want you to understand the relationship between soil, landscape, sheep, like the whole cycle. And you have the whole cycle actually in your living room. Opportunities from this part, and that I will take along also with retracing the coffee bag, is wool, like if sheep are taking care of our landscape, then wool is our common good. And we should really revalue that part. The labor, the heritage, everything that is in, it's insane to think that it's not valuable. On the other hand, industry, like tapping into industry, it's big. And it's big in that way, big amount. It's quite like a very big sheep that you cannot move, So in that way, the needle felting machine maybe is a good example, but to go to smaller ways of washing, but to have the good quality, to maybe spin it or card it, or like to have fabricates, so that other people can work with it, but make it available, make it accessible. This is something that is not there yet, and it's a little bit bigger than a makerspace. You have makerspaces, but that's not what I mean. We need a sort of bigger lab where we can shred and card and live sort of urban life, but make it precious again. So have this in between industry, and on the other side is crafts. But then there is this way of working with, for instance, wool, but also with other fibers. And yes, I think we all should be trained as a shepherd or a farmer, biodynamic farmer, really put our hands in the ground, or, like really work with it, because then you really see the chain of how it is all connected to each other. You will revalue yourself in that way, or how you see it. There are many more thoughts about this. Happily, I'm funded by the Creative Industry Fund and that will come this year, to actually the ideas that I found and everything, to explore them more. And there will be an exhibition, but it will be next year. So I can work on it this year, so that's good. Now I will be switching to the retracing the coffee bag. And maybe the coffee bag project, they have so many things in common. I do this project together with Rosanna Escobar and Alexander Marinos, and we really joined forces together. All of us are graduated from Design Academy Eindhoven, but we did that in several years, so we have a whole mix of that. And then, for instance, Rosanna is graduated on the whole topic of fique. So she's also living in Berlin, but also living in Colombia. She's from Colombia. So the whole background of this plant and how it all grows, she knows, she found out, and she did the research about it. Alexander has a background, or did his research in jute. So in that way, he has a lot of knowledge about the jute. And for me, as having the Veldloom and having this knowledge, so we all joined it together, and that made our team. Here you see a little bit an overview of how we are. It's all overlapping each other in a way. The fique, the jute, hand making, crafting, needle felting, and I think we're all driven by the love of the fiber, and also the questioning that we put on waste. So for the last year, we have been researching and exploring the coffee bag, because coffee bags, they are coming from, if they come from America, then it's the fique fiber. They come from the Andes Mountain, and they come to Europe with the beans, and then they go into roasteries. So they are separated everywhere. And if you have the jute bag, it comes from, most of the time, India and Bangladesh, can also be Africa. And then there's a whole, there's a whole process behind it. But then again, it got filled up, enters Europe by the harbor. You use the coffee beans, or people are roasting the coffee beans, and after that, the bag becomes waste. Thinking about it, it's 100% natural material that we see as waste. If you understand, like, this whole plant, this whole crop has a relationship to a landscape, there is a heritage, it's a wondering thing to see things as waste. So here our research started. First of all, with the bags, they're, maybe they can all be of jute, for instance, but the weavings are all different. So it's really interesting to see that already. And then here we tapped into shredding facilities, because we needed our fluff. We needed, material to work with, but also we found out, talking to industry, and then really big industry, it's more or less one size fits all. So there is no choice about the length of your fiber or anything that you want. It's just, this is what it is, this is the material that we're working with. So we didn't want that, and so we went into ITA. It's a technical university for textiles that helped us to research the right fiber length, and what shredding can do. That already, it's so precious that we were able to do that. But also, of course, in the studio here, really revealing the bags, shredding them, understanding the material, seeing what it does, carding it. This is the jute really, and the volumes that it gets, and then getting it through the needle felting machine and seeing what it does. We had over and over samples and samples. So what we did is we take a look to the fique fiber, and also in a natural way revealed it. It's like this dark grayish thing. It's just by natural, how you say it, vibrate, fluffing it out. But then there's also the jute that we use with bags, without bags. So we were really researching and playing with it, and also going from small scale and small samples and what products can be to our research base to our focus of the Dutch Design Week. because that's where we're heading at. And during the Dutch Design Week, we had a collaboration with Lucifer. It's a roastery. Really happy that we could actually really be in the landscape, the urban landscape, where those coffee bags actually enter, but also being thrown out, so we can straight away work with it. Luckily, they gave us the whole place, so it was really nice to work there as well. And here you see what unraveling does and how you can already, you know, like the bag itself is so very beautiful if you just gently touch it. Here's a whole sample wall with possibilities of, you know, blends, thickness of the fiber, carding it, reweaving it, using the original bag without, you know, like we're also having fun, but also seriously really looking like what are the possibilities. Talking about urban landscapes, going local in a way, but also making production available. This was a sort of dream came true, although maybe it looks, in Dutch we say houtje touwtje, it looks a little bit like, you know, of course it's not an official lab, but it was our lab. It was our lab in Lucifer Roasteries. They gave us their office to work in. So we moved the machine. I was in harmony with the coffee bag surroundings. And then we had our own living lab with sewing machines. We were carding, you know, like, and we were felting, and actually made a lot of production during Design Week and having fun, of course. And so from fun and all kinds of samples, we really went into the next steps. We really found out that you can perfectly shape also with the material, with a very big, thick felt. And on the other hand, there was this blend, blending the characteristics of the fique and blending them in with the jute. Jute is a little bit woolly. Fique is a little bit more tingling and spiky, but together they become, yeah, perfectly material and also very aesthetically known, but also you really want to touch it. It's just, you can build with it, literally. So we're still in the research, so we are continuing this project, and our next showpiece will be in Salon des Mobiles, where we continue, or where we show what we have done from the last months again. So talking a lot, doing a lot, but really understanding or trying to revalue the whole production line. And then now only where I have talked about most of the time in this case is Europe, where the bag comes in. But it's really a precarity to see it the way we see it right now in systems that are built already and molded already around us, that are a little bit way too tight, but also leave people, you know, like it's leaving out. It's terrible to say and to see things as waste, actually, when it's just a natural fiber, or when it's a beautiful natural fiber where you can do so much things with, what we are discovering right now. So this project has many sides. One way, we want to show what you can do if you look in terms of waste, and the other way, it's the ethical part. And hopefully, I don't know if Rosanna is there, I think so. So it's nice to have a conversation together around it, maybe later or after this presentation. For now, I want to thank you, and I want to show you around, and hopefully there is still time to have a discussion also around about this topic. Thank you for now.
Thank you so much, Sanne, and also, you know, please do come back. It was I saw you there briefly on your video for a second, so it'd be lovely to also have you in the conversation. Really, Sanne, it's amazing to kind of hear about your journey And I, for one, am definitely with you in kind of like getting back into the soil and getting your fingers dirty, and, you know, kind of having that experience as much as possible. And I kind of encourage it to really everyone as well. And you can really see through your practice how you've kind of built, not just that your passion has driven you, but also you can kind of see where you've engaged. And, you know, this session, you know, we headed it as community and you know, and really accessible knowledge. And I think that really is demonstrated through your work. And I mean, I kept on kind of, I have so many questions. So also everyone, please do type in questions in the chat. But I think one of the kind of first questions I had when you were in that landscape, and when you were beginning to engage with others, when you were beginning to engage with the shepherd, you know, and other people in that environment and in that, I guess, community that it was already existing. What were the kind of their impressions? You know, I mean, I'm guessing you may have come along with some of your own samples and come along with sort of ideas.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about those beginning conversations that you must have had.
Well, it's funny, it's a good question. Thank you for that. It's really, you're coming from different worlds, so you have a different language. And the first thing that there was a sort of also a gentle misunderstanding, let's call it like that. And the gentle misunderstanding, I don't know, one thing actually about you still see me, because I don't see you, but I just can.
Oh,
can
yeah,
you continue talking?
Can you see, you can hear me talking.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's just I'm not pinned,
Oh.
or yeah.
Maybe
we can definitely see you though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I can. Well, you're frozen, but smiling. So in that way, it's also good.
That's good.
No, these conversations were very interesting because, and also a little bit, how you say it, you know, like slowly coming together. It's not straight away like, oh yeah, let's join forces, bam, yeah. No, it's not like that, because shepherds know, they hear this already for years. So who is this person who's trying to do something with their wool, you know, like, so it's about gaining trust, having a dialogue, and really start understanding each other's worlds. And for me, mostly the world of the ecological world, you know, like really how my shepherds told me always, I can think like a sheep. And that sounds like, okay, is that the knowledge that you need here? But actually, think about it, it's brilliant that he can think about, you know, like thinking that way means understanding, again, soil, landscape, plants that you need, the how you need to feed, how you need to walk, what is good for you. So taking care of your flock is understanding, again, also think like a sheep, you know, like really connect to that.
It is exactly that. And it made me think, one of the things I noted down was that this sense of community and actually the environment that you were in, maybe you weren't with actually many humans, but it was still, you were in a community. That environment was your community that you were coming into, and you were actually joining that community, that existing space, that environment. And so you needed to kind of probably sit back and observe and see what was going on first before you could, you know, make any, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely, you know, like, and I think the most question I asked was constantly why, you know, like, why are you doing this? Because I literally didn't understand. I'm a city girl, so I really needed to understand it all to make a step, a little step. So
that engagement also, I think that is a kind of driving force as well. You know, you mentioned being a city girl, and I think that often if you're in a city, or even if you live rurally, I suppose, you still need to have that drive to want that connection with where you're going, and also to want that connection with the material. If you just think about things as sort of static objects and not as you know, this complex chain, which when you get into materials and when you get into this kind of thing, you start to see. but maybe, you know, on the surface you observe where your food come from, and you observe, you know, that it comes in a packet. If you have no other interactions from that, you don't really build upon it, and you know, you have no need to interact with it.
Exactly. This is exactly what it is. It's really this need to be in touch, but really touching it. And touching it, I think, is also taking care of it. So it's really, yeah. And if it's, you know, like it's in a package or it's hanging there, you don't cling into it.
Yeah. You put it's on a kind of strange pedestal somewhere that, you know, you know, I can access it because it's maybe at this price, or I can access it, but you don't have any other interaction there. I mean, that's what I think it was quite interesting when you talked about, I love this phrase, biodynamic farmers. And I think, and I just was also thinking about the shepherd that you were discussing with, if they ever had this opportunity when you were showing them some samples, and you said, and they said, oh no, I like this one, or this reminds me of, or this is like this part of the sheep, or, you know.
Well, actually it happened. Well, the end result was that I showed the big file that we made, and now the whole farm is decorated with it. So that's wow. a big big thank you for that. But yes, definitely, because on the breast there is more hair also in it, so it's not that woolly, and also on the back. So that was really interesting, actually, to discover and also to tell about. But also the first steps were actually hand washing, you know, really on where all the sheep were. So literally, and seeing what it does. So it was really interesting also that to do this together. The first part, now I showed the industrial part, but the first part, the washing and also the carding, but everything doing by hand, we did together. And there was the dialogue coming from. So and also, again, me learning from him, but also he learning from me, because he really about revaluing. If people constantly hear your wool is not worth anything, you start thinking that there's something wrong with your wool. But there's nothing wrong with your wool. And that way you think like, oh, minerals are missing, or it's not healthy, or it's too breakable. But wool is wool. Most of them have all the same characters, you know, like it's just the material what it is. Of course, if you look from textile perspective, I understand these are other values, but there's nothing wrong with your flock. So there was also a little bit a decent, like, oh no, you know, like apologizing for the quality of the wool. And I'm like, no, don't, you know, like we can really work with it.
And I think that's the thing. I think when you start to bring samples and you actually do maybe show either where it's raw materials or the materials, or, you know, the products are made, to the people where they, you know, are actually, you know, creating, you know, and taking care of the flock, they're taking care of that produce in a sense. You know, that you build up such a way of kind of this common language, actually, is sort of what you mentioned, and actually trying to understand each other, the same vocabulary, and that kind of thing is amazing. And I just have to say also, I love the idea of seeing the wool industry as a large sheep. And I'm going to start to think as every single industry as a large version of those things. So a large orange, a large, you know, just imagining that as like, this is something, you know, it's a it's a nice way to scale it in a way.
Well, thanks.
It's really really good. But I think that availability and accessibility, and, you know, when you're speaking about the kind of, it's almost like micro factories that you were talking about, what we need in terms of accessing it. And I guess this also then links to, you know, the Retracing the Coffee Bag project, because essentially you could use some of those facilities and investment, you know, across the board for these different projects.
Yeah, definitely, because that's, for instance, with fibers in general. If it's, you know, like I talked now about jute and the fique, but of course wool as well. If you have a couple of machines, you can work with it all. It can also be with flax, hemp, but even recycling, you know, like recycling the jerseys or denim, you know, as long as you have a couple of machines, it can be a research small industrial center where you can experiment, but also make one-on-one products, because in a way, we are capable of that. You know, like people are trained and to do that.
Yeah, and they are going to be supporting, and then it builds. It kind of you get integrated into other people's lives, and that community builds, all that those conversations build through different ages, you know, through different cultures, and that actually is a kind of, it actually strengthens it as well. So it's really it's amazing that, and also that these mentioned being gentle with it, and so sort of allowing people to maybe have the time to experiment a little bit with the materials, and you know, expand their knowledge as well, and that in that sense caring and being gentle with receiving the knowledge, and helping, you know, disseminate this knowledge is really important. Actually, I've just seen we have a couple of questions. So one question from, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Kalilu Banja says, how does Sanne get where do you get the raw materials from? You know, how are they coming in? I know you've mentioned to me about these.
I think, are you then the wool or the fique and jute, because
the question wasn't specific, but you could mention both.
With the wool, I think the trajectory was sort of, you know, like we have our sheep and then the wool came in, so there comes the raw material. Practically, maybe I show a little bit around here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because that was one of the other questions, is do you have sample materials on the wall behind you? Which we'd love to see and show you as we're in your studio.
Okay, well, let's go back maybe first to the raw material, because and then I will come close a little bit more to this one. Here, and this is really like I have a sort of warehouse suddenly about, you know, coffee bags. And also here is, we call it the big beast, and the big beast is fibres, you know, like the jute fiber, where we constantly take something off. And here, what I have here is the let's see if you can see it. It's the fique fiber. And how do we get this? It's very simple, actually. You just go into a coffee roastery place and you ask for bags. Like here they are. Here we have them piled up, but I have many more. It's insane. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just it's just a lot. And then
and categorized well, must I say?
Thank you for noticing. Yes, we categorized them. We because it's very good to say it. Yes, because this is our research phase. So yes, we're focused on the weavings and, you know, like where does everything come from and what brand is what, and, you know, like organizing ourselves. But anyway, so the fique fiber, for instance, this is the spreaded material that so we have this collaboration with ITA, like I mentioned, the technical university who shredded this for us. It's very sweet. I have to show you. I don't know if you can see. Oh yeah, you see a trolley with a bag on it. This is our way of getting the bags on in the bus with us when we're visiting coffee roasteries. It's very
so you've
sweet.
Hacked another object. You've hacked another product to, you know.
Yeah, actually, yes. It's a grandma car, or we call it like that. Like a grocery car. It's beautiful. Well, anyway, I know that also. So in that way, that's how we got it. You know, like how we got the raw material is literally coming from bags. The material in the bag, I think it can be two of them. Here I switch back to wool, and then you see the woolen fiber. It's needle felted, and it has a festoonier, like it has those stitches. Here in the back, it looks like maybe if you see it, it looks like leather, but it's not. It's jute, carded jute through the needle felting machine, and we loved it the way. Yeah, it also looks like a skin again. So that's why it's hanged like this. So this is actually outside my studio or on the wall. I'm happy enough to have quite a big working space in this case. Maybe we can walk now into the official studio.
Yeah, sure, great.
So here's the felt loom. I don't know if you can see the needle felting machine where I'm working with. Yeah, here are samples of the wool because the carding machine is the carding drum.
Yes,
something that's
really important for that process.
You cannot live without. It's also with this and the needle felting machine. And yes, I got a lot of needles, of course, but also really different ones. It comes quite precise when you work with the needle felting technique. Wait, I don't know if this is the.
Oh yeah, we can see. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's the barbs that do the work, but you have
it's kind of got indentations and slots within the needle, doesn't it? So that when you pull it back out, it hooks.
Yes, exactly, and that's what does the job. That's what the felting does. Let me go back to the other space, but this is the studio.
I mean, also, I think that's one of the things, we positioned this around, the circular open studios, and I think this also gives a sense, really, when we're discussing spaces and we're discussing this kind of work. If anyone is interested in kind of developing sort of in this areas in the country that they are in, and looking at that, it also, I think, you opening up your space gives someone a potential idea of maybe what they need to start off with, maybe the kind of space they're looking at for terms of storage, because you have it categorized so well. And even if you were doing things on a small hand scale, having those kind of designated areas must help with your development process.
Yeah, well, I think this is also, for me at least, becoming more and more professional. And finding out also what you need.
Yes.
Well, and you need an overview. If you have so many fibers and everything, you need to categorize it, or at least I do, and also to help others, because sharing the knowledge.
Don't you have in some people actually in the studio that you're working with, obviously when your colleagues from Retracing the Coffee Bag, they come and you can work in that space together, but also students and other people that you've worked with.
Yeah, definitely. Well, quite many. There are fashion brands who are coming in and just trying things out. That's literally what's happening. So researching, and most of them, for instance, Marco Polo or Nike or Lily, it's a Dutch label. They came in and they come with fabrics that they need to reuse. So in that way, it's they're also. Everyone wants to be sustainable, but the question is how do you do that? And experimenting here in the studio, one-on-one, trying, making errors, it doesn't matter, but renting the machine and sharing knowledge and see what leftover fabrics can do, or fabric to fabric, or fiber to fiber, or really, in that way it's research. And I also like the part of playing, because sometimes you need to twist it around, and twisting it around is also making it a little bit lighter, and looking the way and trying and explore. And sometimes you just also need to have fun to come to a next step. So that's what I always try to give also everyone who comes into the studio, just a warm feeling. So in that way, students are coming, companies are coming, but also designers are coming, and to execute their product.
And prototype it, and having those conversations. And so that way you're sort of, you might have something that you're working on, a project that you're working on, but actually being able to then discuss, have discussions, open discussions about the processes and the potentials, and then also having those ideas exchanged with others is actually continuously helping to build your practice and help others as well. So for me, that's sort of, that's it's quite root-like. You're sort of like reaching out for the nutrients and building up further, and I really like that. It's really so interesting. And I'm sure we have got we've got another question, sorry, that I just seen as well. So this is, I don't know if you might also, I don't know if you can see the chat, but you might also want to read it because maybe there's something specific in here, because I don't know what TVET programs are. Khalilio has asked, do you provide modules for TVET programs as linked to as the Sustainable Development Goals? I'm not sure what the TVETs are.
No, I don't know.
I
don't know what they are. Please tell.
Oh, we can't hear you. You might have to type it in the chat because I don't know, maybe your connection isn't as, because we can't yeah, vocational training. Okay. I'm
vocational training.
Yeah, maybe even if it's a very long question, Khalilio, happy for you to like write it out and we can, look at it and keep on this because it's very curious. We're all curious as to what it means, or
thank you.
Okay, technical and vocational educational training. Thank you, Anna and Christiana. If you have any modules for vocational training linked to Sustainable Development Goals. So do you run any courses or training yourself, or does it come from within, others contacting you?
No, I do give trainings. That is true. Mostly ask for it. Also, for instance, in France, I give. So yes, I give trainings to really give you, like the base of needle felting. So what is actually the technique? What can you do with it? And also you learn step by step, and then in the end you can develop your own work. But yes, there is a training that I give.
Okay. And out of curiosity, because I'm just thinking of accessibility of tools and equipment, like the actual machine, but also even just the needle, the needles themselves. Are they steel? Oh, look at that! Love it.
Are they steel?
Yeah. Do you know? I was just thinking about the material and sort of because when you're in different countries, you may say, okay, I would like that needle, but maybe it won't be accessible. And I'm just thinking about people even trying to produce their own needles, or and that kind of thing. Well, or if it's very centered around
that is a thing where you're now tapping in, and now you're really, I think, like again going back into industries and landscapes and things that some are accessible, some not. My colleague from Retracing the Culty Bag, Alexander, is building his own needle felting machine.
Wow.
But not the needles in that way, because the needles, there is, I think there are 2 suppliers in the whole world, and one of them is in Germany. Okay. And for me, that is simply the best needle. I cannot, but talking about how industry is built up, how things are accessible, of course they ship everywhere, like they do that all around the world. But yeah, there is a price on it. I cannot do this without. Also I must say, the preciseness of the needles, it's a job on its, it's really, it's a project on itself.
Yes.
They have done this already for years, but here we come, I think, again, in this area where I'm like, big industry rules it also. So in one way, they're helping me, by making stuff, and on one way, it's a non-accessible industry where I'm only listening, but not joining, like not being part of
that. I think is really difficult to get into, but that's why I asked it, because I think it's one of those things that many people might like to go out and try this, but also finding, are there, I don't know, existing machines even that are old, or other things that you can hack, or who can you ask that maybe has experience in this from 20, 30 years ago, in industry that might in your different countries that may know about this. And I think that's I think that's part of the conversation. That's why I wondered, because I couldn't remember. I don't remember if we discussed it before.
No, well, I know about, well, needle felting machines. There is an option for, I know for sure, like, it's a very old technique. It's nothing new. And there are very old machines, but very good ones still available, secondhand, you know, everything still. And then there is this hack, what I really love, this DIY, build it yourself community that, you know, like explorers. Alexander is one of them. And then, so in the machine, there is a lot possible, but there it comes to needles. Yeah, I wish it was different, but I'm sorry, it's not.
But perhaps, I mean, to spin it on its head, there's opportunity there for, you know, people who are interested in exploring it.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, like, sadly, we're at time, and we have to have a break before our next speaker. But it's been so wonderful to speak to you, and thank you, everyone, for your questions. And also, Sanne, if you're sticking around at all, if you keep, you know, do ask some more questions in the chat. And Sanne, if you do have to go, if you can't stick around, we can also then forward some of those questions on. And you know, I think it would be amazing to try and continue in the conversation. And Anna also, Anna, thank you for sharing some of more of the links, and we'll share some more of Sanne's links as well to her work. So please do find Sanne Muiser, find Studio Pluie, and find Retracing the Coffee Bag. You know, Google it, find your search engine and look it up, and yeah, keep on, I guess, exploring. And thank you, Sanne.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So we are at 11:04. So I guess we'll have a 5-minute break. So let's say we come back at 11:04 in the UK. So we'll come back at 10 past of the hour, wherever you are. Okay, great.
You say you don't wanna go. I say I don't really know. We can go back tonight if you wanna stay a while. I do. I think we should jump inside. Some balls, you just let you fight. I'll wait till you just fine. Tell me what you find inside you. Say what you gonna say. Wait, if you cannot stay with me, why would you go out there without a song in your head? They want you to say, you beat on every day, just so we know how to find our way. It's your call, you wanna stay, just take it to the next floor. You want the stars just to fall in love, but you can't take the time to look above. Our love it slips away, whether you want it, it all falls someday. Everything I feel, my brain's like, nah, it's not real, it's not real, but it feels real. I wanna see your face, I want you in my space. I wanna see your face, I want you in my space. It is just a comma, not a full stop. We're dancing on a beat that ceased to drop. Oh, how a feeling of you all night, lighting up the whole crowd. I miss it, it's insane. Home is wherever your heart is. My heart is next to yours. Here, please come to stay. I wanna see your face. I want you in my space. I wanna see your face. I want you in my space. Just waiting for the spotlight to fade on the stage. Think of all the people seeking for a moment to hold. I wonder what will be my role. My thoughts are hanging over the sound of this theater. Remind me of the old days when together we were grooving on the same way. I wanna see your face. I want you in my space. I wanna see your face. I want you in my space. I wanna see your face. I want you in my space.
Good morning, everyone. Some of you good afternoon, some of you very early in the morning. Welcome back to session 3, our last session of the Circular Open Studios 2023. Had such an amazing session just now with Sanne Muiser in the Netherlands, talking about her practice with wool and with jute fibre and many other fibres, felting. And we are going to go on a whole nother journey and different scale. Now we have are joined by our next speaker, Carlo Roca Fiorita. I'm going to get better as I keep on saying it. Thank you so much, Carlo, for joining us. You are in Italy. Remind us where you are at the moment.
Hello Zoe. I am in Mazzara del Vallo in Sicily.
In Sicily, yeah. I mean, I'm very envious of you being there at the moment. I know it's beautiful, and thank you so much for inviting us into your studio space, and for showcasing Periferica, which is your studio and your collaborative workshop. So yeah, if you want to take it away and introduce us to your practice.
Yeah, thank you, Zoe and Anna, for this great opportunity to share our projects, our organization, our story to other creatives and experts of your community. I'll just start my presentation. Let me see if you can see it the correct way. Okay, did you see it?
We can see it. We can see the sidebar a bit, but we can see it.
Oh, sorry. Let's retry.
Yeah, no worries. Honestly, to also everyone in the audience, we have had some like great sessions, like trying to figure out everyone's different computer setups and audio setups. So you are getting the full experience as well. We can't see your screen, but we can be patient. Do not worry.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry for this.
Not at all. I think this is also part of it, isn't it? You know. Ah, this is perfect.
Ah, okay. You were seeing it. Okay.
We were seeing it, yeah, and we were seeing it full screen. So that's if it's gone now, it's gone now, but it was there.
Can you see it? No?
I can't see it, no.
Oh.
But it was there for a second. We see a white screen. Oh no, yes, can see it now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't touch anything more. Okay, perfect. Okay. You can see also me, no?
Yes.
My presentation.
We can, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, first of all, I'm Carlo Roccafiorita. I am the founder and director of Periferica. Periferica is an organization that we founded 10 years ago. 10 years ago in 2013 in Mazara del Vallo in Sicily. It's Mazara del Vallo is the city where we started to regenerate a space where youngsters, creatives, experts feels at home, start to share their ideas in a peripheral part of Europe. We are a small city, about 50,000 inhabitants. Off from the creative system, our city doesn't have a park, neither a cultural center in the last years or so. We come back from the university to share a vision. What about a cultural park where to host the creatives, experts, students, innovators from all over the world and share ideas and projects with them? So we started this project, and today Periferica is an organization that promotes urban regeneration through social, culture, and artistic processes. We manage and develop creative driven processes to regenerate spaces, and we help public and private company to regenerate space involving the community in this kind of process. To make to generate also social, culture, and economic impact. We know that sustainability is like an umbrella, no? It has a lot of I'd say field of study inside. And we started from the urban regeneration, then to cultural planning, and in the last year we also work in the field of circular economy. Okay. Yeah. We have 4 key fields of actions. We manage educational formats for students and professionals. We also have a creative studio. We manage a space that I will show you also later with our tour. And we manage a community hub for our local community. Each one of these key fields have been funded. We participate in some competition to fund some money to run this. The organization is made up of creatives that are chosen to return in Sicily to invest in culture, tourism, and training as vectors of innovation and development. It's a multidisciplinary group made up of architects, creatives, and we share our ideas in a place that we have started to call home, that in Italian is literally casa. Casa Periferica. Casa Periferica is today is a contemporary cultural park, a creative center, which in addition to hosting our studio, we host also meetings, events, exhibitions. It's a space where we experiment growth through cultural tourism and innovation. The space is very particular because it's divided into 3 levels, born from the regeneration of a former kindergarten on the top, then an open-air quarry, and an underground space from the 18th century for a total of 5,000 square meters. So here there is our vision. In Mazara city, without a park or a cultural center, we wanted to regenerate a place to grow, work, and also have fun by promoting culture and the art and society. A space where the realities of the territory can share, propose their own idea, activity, or projects. But in the past, these are some pictures about the past of Periferica. Before Periferica, it was a depot for heavy vehicles and a former kindergarten, a space completely abandoned for about 30 years with no vision of the future. And today Periferica is recognized as a cultural park, but we have begun to define this space as a sort of compass capable of orienting our local generation towards a sustainable future in a marginal reality. I want to focus on this. Do these kind of activities in a provincial, in a very peripheral part city of Europe is very different from a bigger city, no? Where there are a lot of opportunity to share, to share, to develop ideas, and to know new people, and to know new opportunity. So we call it like a compass. Compass because we live in this historical phase where the absolute becomes relative and the relative claims to be absolute. So we need to generate a new places capable of education, or educating, emancipating, and civilizing, spaces capable of speaking an international language that recognize the diversity of many words that populates the earth. And this assumes very importance in our reality. Cities are changing fast, producing inequalities, so we need new ways to manage the transformation. This is our philosophy. For us, to regenerate means to recognize the urban space as a complex systems of interaction between people and places. So we have to take an holistic, multidisciplinary and participatory approach, balancing the architecture of spaces and processes. And this is the reason why we design formats capable to include communities in urban changing and vice versa. So here there is our compass, our 4 cardinal points: centralized borders, empower people, and open source spaces, and reimagine heritage. I will focus on each one of these points and show you a project in relation to. Centralized borders, because in Italy, the 40% of people who live in metropolises live in disadvantaged conditions, and 80% of these people are in the suburbs. So we need to centralize the margins, I mean social, cultural, and economic marginality, bringing them to the center of this new dynamics of development. There is a particular theory about the marginality approach, about Gold, a biologist, that argue that marginal isolated populations are able to develop unique characteristics that allow them to survive and to thrive in the face of change. This kind of marginality from paradox determines an evolutionary advantage when the environmental condition changes. And this is a phenomenon that is called punctuated equilibrium. So we believe that the marginal territories, the internal areas, the periphery are not condemned, but we must bring people back to the center of this kind of dynamic of development. The video you are seeing is about a project that we ran 10 years ago when we started, and we started from collect, how to say, interview from people who lives in their districts. So we collect data from them, but also create a new narrative that enable us to create a community, to share opinions. And it was very important for a very close city like Mazara. Empower people because 34% of Italian children live in a condition of absolute poverty. This is an incredible amount of children. In Italy, we have more than 60% of children did not visit a museum, and as many of 74 did not visit a monument, and so on. So we need to empower people, means giving to the children the tools to read, to interpret the world, the dynamics, and to take ethically valid position. So this is the logic that lead us to this project, Parco Elementare, that describes the regeneration of our quarry as a space for children to educate them and to give them a place where to meet other people and to have fun. We developed this project starting from the whole theory of proxemic that defines different space in relation to the distance, no, from that space, such as intimate, personal, social, public. But we develop like a strategy from this theory. We define different field of education of our target in relation to their in relation to the place that they live, like the school, their school, their home, their district, their city, and so on. So we collect data from them, and we developed this project that is based on a Minecraft aesthetic. I don't know if you know Minecraft. We pixelize every part of the of our query, this mixed query, in a functional space for children. And you know, if you design a space for children, it's like you are designing it for everyone, because it must be perfect in every kind of detail. And this is a in-process project. I mean that we have developed 20% of this space, as you can see it, and we are going to regenerate with other sponsors and partners. Reimagine heritage. This is a very important point for us, and you will see why. The reason why. We have 51 UNESCO sites in Italy, ahead of China and Spain, and 7 out of 10 Italians do not consume culture. Also, the 30% of the Italian heritage is in Sicily. That, as you can imagine, is very important for us as a region. But we attract only 10% of Italian tourists. It's like a paradox reality. We discovered during our project that also our city is full of treasure that needs to be evaluated, promoted, and protected. I'm talking about a particular project that we developed 5 years ago, is about the underground space of our city of Mazara del Vallo. That for our project, has been very important to know this other project in Napoli. It's called the Catacombe di Napoli. I invite you to explore it. And this is the story of gradual regeneration of catacombs through the community, a local community of children, of people. They have been able to generate after 10 years to 12,000 of square meters, so regenerate spaces, and a lot of visitors, as you can see. They created a new cultural touristic offer in a market like the one of Naples. Okay, so we started to imagine how to replicate this kind of process in our city. We know that Mazara is not Naples, but we have some treasure to share with other visitors. And also Mazara, talking about tourism, has been more, I'd say, has been a good destination in these last 5 years. So we explore the peripheral area of Mazara. The white pixels you can see in this map shows the quarry of Mazara. We are talking about a system, a territorial system of 2,000 to 200,000 square meters, mostly private spaces that are abandoned, unused. We started to think about how to promote this. So born a new project, Evocava, Museo Evocativo delle Cave, that means evocative museum of the quarry of Mazara. This project was 5 years ago and refers not only to the space I have described, Casa Periferica, but also to the whole district and some part of the city. So we put a museum. We decided to put a museum in a little underground part of our quarry. We include other quarries with a particular characteristics. The interesting thing is that we have like 200,000 square meters of urban land, no, of garden, in a city that doesn't have a park, no? So it was very simple to collaborate with inhabitants to develop this idea. We included 4 quarry to start our project. This is the like the scheme of the visitor journey. When we started our project, we made a particular discovery. This is a video I'll try to show you, but I will give you the link to enjoy it. It's a video that shows the day we found another space connected to the 50 square meters of our culture, of our little museum. We discovered that there was an ancient wall that was hiding something. We were expecting to find like another 10 square meter space, but we discovered another kind of dimension. As you can see, I don't know if it's good, the video, but yeah, you should see the discovery that we made. It's another 3,000 square meters space we found during the first operation of cleaning. So we discovered this kind of time machine connected to our museum, and we put this incredible space in the hands of creatives and experts from all over the world. I mean that Periferica starts with a urban regeneration festival. It's one of the most important formats that we develop. We developed this, we organized the 7th edition of summer school, International Summer School of Architects creatives, designers, communicators from all the world to come in Sicily, Mazara, to develop with us the regeneration of our space. So when we discover this space, we said, okay, we don't have enough resources to develop it, so we need new idea. We can open the space to other people, and so we made a beautiful summer school in 2 years. I invite you to go to our site to see the report of this work that is, I think is amazing. I mean, in relation to the research we had, every students give their I'd say their effort to the developing of this project. And the final result was amazing. In 10 days, just 10 days, with the students, we cleaned the space, we put the lights inside, we regenerate the first 100 square meters to the connection to the underground cathedral. And also they were able to be like the first guides of this kind of service. In total, we made in 2 years 5,000 visits. And also, I'm happy to share this photo because this is the day when, after 1 year of starting our project, the Minister of Culture comes to Periferica during his first visit in Sicily and decided to come to us to to promote our project. The last open source spaces, last cardinal point, because 15% of Italian properties are abandoned, is like 2.5 times Rome. For open source space, we mean like open the space to the other resources. It means we must adopt the open source methodology to reactivate the places through the collection of external activators. And I'll show you how we made it through 3 formats. 10 square meters was a microarchitecture competition. Recreation has been our artistic program, residencies. And the Open Museum has been our summer school and festival of urban regeneration. These 3 formats allows us to generate impacts with low resources because we collaborate with other persons, with other creatives that decided to reach us. And you can find this video that is I'd say describe our project during the last 5 years through the voices of the participants, from the architects, from the designer involved, and so on. I invite you to explore it on our website. These are our compass, but there is the most important, I think, point is the center point, and is the builder, the so-called builder. The builder of future is a person that feels the responsibility of make some changes in their territory, in their city, in their district, in their homes. This is a photo that I love. Is the day when, during the local elections, we made a post on Facebook to invite the candidates of that elections to firm to accept a cultural urban. It's like a pact. I don't know if the word is correct. It's like how to say. It's like a manifest. I don't know if it's correct, but in Italy we call it manifesto of urban culture. we asked to the candidates to firm like a declaration, a sort of declaration about the change of the city that they had to do in the next years. We also give them the opportunity to answer to some questions. All the candidates firms our manifesto, and also the current how to say who I don't know how to say sindaco. Well, the administrator of the city, and we are happy to say that it works. It works to include the people, to make a community, to make such as critical thinking about the changement or the possible change of the city, and to synthesize it in a declaration of agreement with the administrators. So this is
Carlo, we have lost you. You're paused. Oh, maybe you're just you're coming back on another line.
okay. You see me?
You're switching over. We still see your other one. Maybe Anna, if you unpin.
Okay. Yeah, because of the connection. But
No
we
worries.
are just in time because I was finishing my presentation, so it's perfect. Perfect switching. Yeah, I was just saying that the way we describe ourselves, Pillar of Future, is like all the people that are joining this conversation, I think, because every one of us are trying to make some impact starting from a point.
Yeah.
And during this path, we are trying to work with other people and to make impact in our territory. So I think we are doing our work in the correct way.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we had a conversation before, and I obviously knew your work from some parts, but going into depth about the reason why and the process that you have had in the last 10 years, or even just in the last couple of years with the developments are really amazing. I know we were going to have a kind of, I would say a studio tour, but it's a large studio, isn't it? So we can really we can do that now. Maybe do you want to do that now before questions, or what do you fancy? Shall I ask some questions? Yeah, maybe we go and see take us through the tour, do a tour a tiny bit, and then we come back and answer some questions.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, for sure. I am with the mobile, so I for the question, if they write,
yes.
I think I can't see it, but
I can read them to you with questions coming in. So if anyone has questions, please just type them in the chat. And Carlo is going to take us on a tour now because he's in the space. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am the person of before of the presentation. This is my table. I try to change the.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is my workstation. Yeah.
Nice.
You will see during the tour some art pieces like this one. That is called the Urban Lang. Is from an Italian artist, Paola Tassetti, that makes a residency here, and trying to turn. Yeah, okay. This is the co-working area where I work with other people, and over this door there is the rooms for the residencies. We have 4 rooms on Airbnb, and we use it to also host creatives to make some residency. Yeah, here you can find one of the projects that we developed during the summer school. Maybe you can recognize the same project of the presentation. We also have, I want to show you, yeah. Here there are some particular elements about our organization, starting from the logo. Usually a lot of ask me why a pink sheep.
Yeah, we did have
why
that
there are
question
pink
in the
sheep
chat
everywhere. Well, this is funny things because it's casual. I mean, I was at university and we were involved in the development of the first edition of the summer school, and it was ideated as let's say nomad summer school. We have to change the district every year, no? So we decided to connect each district to a particular animal. We made a photo, I'd say a research of historical photo of the first district, that is the one where Periferica is. And we found out that the main square that today is full of buildings was totally empty, with just a shepherd and a group of sheep within, no? And we say, okay, maybe sheep could be our animal, our symbol, like the bird of Twitter.
The spirit animal.
Yeah, our spirit animal. And we was thinking it was like a temporary logo, but when it starts to give us a lot luck, we decided to do it permanently. And also, okay, sorry. Here there are some books that I love. This is a publication that we made. I don't know if you are able to, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Well, I had to, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay, yeah. And I want to show it just because it's particularly important to describe the relation with other community. This is a publication about one of the projects, the Evocava Museum, and we made a publication that described with photos and tests as poetry and so on our relation with the subjects of these projects. Like, for example, Benito, that is one of the cavemen that started to work in the cave when he was 7 years old, and is the grandparents of Paola, one of my collaborators.
You've really got that family thread as well, and so not just you just uncovering places. There's actually social history of being able to talk to someone who's actually been in that space.
Yeah. So let's go
on a tour
to the outside part. Okay. As you can see, we have a lot of colors here. This is an artwork made by Albero Nero. Albero Nero is an artist, Italian artist that we work with to totally change the outside space, and is as you have seen in the presentation, is a giant square seen from the top. He works with color, as you can see, and he chooses a particular color in relation to the function of the buildings. The color of Periferica is pink, so this part is more pinker. Going to this direction, there is the quarry, so we choose this other color, and here there is our info point space that we use when we do some events. Here there is our social kitchen. We are Italian, so we love food, and it's a serious thing. So we usually use events, food events, as a way to stay with people, to involve them. Also, I want to show you the underground space.
Yeah, it's getting a tiny bit grainy, but we can still see it, so it's good.
Okay. From this perspective, that is better, I think. Okay, I don't know if you.
It's amazing to see this scale, because obviously we've seen it from the presentation, but like this is your scale of studio, which is incredible.
in this part, there is also that path that goes underground to the underground part of the museum. You have to imagine that the first time we came in this space, there was no green, there was no plants, there was anything. It was like a desert. So we started to put plants and give a lot of water to the ground to transform it.
But also, I'm thinking the nutrients that actually must naturally be in the rocks as well. Once you start to kind of connect with those, you're kind of reinvigorating the system by actually being in that space.
Yeah, exactly. And this is I want just to share this. This is a how to say it's an artwork from Palatassetti, the same artist from the co-working, and this subject is very powerful for us. It's like a guardian. She concepted it as a I don't know the correct word, but is like a person who traveled the time, okay, and space. This artwork has a particular reason for us because in the last 5 years we had some problems with a part. Well, I can say that is a kind of community. It's just one person that tries to damage us, damage the organization. I found our cars in flame. In front of our organization. We had some problems, but during a low path, we started to protect the space and ourselves from the criminality. This is one of the, I would say, characteristics I can say of the project that starts to make some changes in this kind of territories.
But that makes me think, because I mean, just thinking about like a couple of things I was gonna pick up from your talk was that actually those interviews that you had initially with the community, I mean, you mentioned like how important it was to have those interviews and have those discussions of what people needed, what people were feeling about the space, what their kind of previous knowledge was perhaps of the space, but also then getting, having the Minister of Culture visiting. That's like a super push forward. That's a really positive support from the government. And then you've just mentioned also there's, you get criminal activity potentially with a large space that needs to be managed. So you get the negative, impacts of being a kind of community space, having a community cultural space, and I think it's really good to mention those the kind of the positives and the negatives that happen with it, because for anyone else that is interested in creating and supporting spaces, you have to almost think about everyone's safety, physical safety, as well as how to kind of maybe in the future change opinions or have more conversations with the people that are maybe in disagreement or aren't liking something that you're doing. So I think it's thank you for mentioning from those aspects, because I think it is important with this kind of scale that you're working at to mention. I have we have a couple of questions on the chat, so I'll go to those first before I ask any of my own. So one of the questions, well, you've already answered about the sheep for the logo, and some really big compliments from your presentation.
Thank you.
And Periferica. One of the questions is, how does the creative residency program work? So you've mentioned there's sort of 4 spaces, so how does that work, and are there kind of annual opportunities for the residencies, or is it on a kind of project by project basis?
The second one, I mean, we started with no budget program, just for experiment the residency here. It works very good. Then we tried to fund the project with some opportunity, and it works. We hosted like 20 artists in these years that makes some artworks here or in the district. We are seeing there is an opportunity that is called the Culture Moves Europe. We want to open space to artists again, but we know that this round of Culture Moves Europe, I know that is only targeted to artists. So we can just show our let's say availability to host, but the artists have to keep this opportunity of Culture Moves Europe. For everyone who is interested to come here, you can of course mention Periferica as a space where to do your creative residency. Also, I didn't mention our project that we developed in the last 2 years to be let's say, to be specific. This wasn't like a project of Periferica, but was a project where Periferica was involved, but was very important. It is in the field of circular economy, that is called the Risacca, and is a project about the reusing and recycle process of fishing nets as a brand for fashion and ethical design. We did we finished the experimenting process. And I think that the next months, the Periferica will host, will open this field of residency dedicated to artisanal field, about the recycle and so on. Because
I think that, I mean, but that's what I think what's so interesting about this in terms of relation to care and community and knowledge transfers, that you're not only talking about one physical space that you are in and that you're working from, you're talking about, you know, Periferica working with other districts, with other collaborators, and actually extending it out. And one of the questions was actually specifically if you have any connections with spaces in the UK or maybe even other countries that are doing similar things.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We have found some platforms, like if I remember well, it's Creative Hubs, or Transhalle, maybe, that are, I see some platform that connects realities from other countries. I have to be honest, during the pandemic, we went in total crisis, I mean organizational crisis, because this space, our organization was focused with for our organization and also for our space, the collaboration, the interaction, physical interaction was the most important thing. So we didn't try to find other kind of connection, but we try to do again in next months.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, that's a really interesting point there, because obviously, you know, being a space of contact, being a space of interaction, you know, you have to kind of have a plan ahead, quite far ahead as well, a program of events, a program of collaborations that you're going to be working on. And I think one of the things that I thought was so amazing is that the fact that you've got all of these different layers in the space. So you've got the resident space, you've got the design studio, you know, co-working space, but having that museum, I guess, on site, and having that point of contact with the history, that is so unique. And one of the questions kind of that I guess I'll maybe alter to this, to add to a question, or to incorporate into this question is, if you were going to give any advice for others who were looking to achieve something similar in their country, so you know, how they can, say, support other individuals or communities to get access to especially a kind of heritage site, because not everyone has so many kind of abandoned spaces that need to be used. But is there kind of any initial advice that you would give for people who are interested in kind of creating these sort of multi-layered, multifunctional spaces to get people in and talking?
Well, I can say that you have to start from two important things that are emotions and data. One is from the most scientific approach, and another is from the most human. Because without these two fields, you can't do anything, I think. When I talk about Periferica, especially students, they think that it was made by experts or with a team of you know, academics and so on. But when we started the project, we were just students at university at 22, 23 years, and some friends. But the most powerful things that we had was the vision, was like to let people perceive the tangibility of this vision. Doesn't matter the obstacles, doesn't matter the lack of resources, and so on. So I think start a project is like a sort of process of I'd say it's like a true test. You have to be true in every part of the analysis, of the interpretation, of the connection, because if you try to how to say false this kind of information from the external part, you can do anything. I don't know if it's clear, but I'm trying to describe my...
No, I think it makes sense, because I think we can all identify with that need from, you know, other organizations and other sources saying that we need to have the scientific data, we need to have, you know, our identified, you know, tangible reasons of why we should be doing this and what data we have to, you know, support that. But we kind of often forget about the, you know, the people side of it, the heart, the emotion, and we forget about that reason for actually wanting to make change and coming from, you know, ourselves as humans. And I think it's, and perhaps maybe linking even to Sanne's talk, but not just humans, but other organisms, other parts of our environment as well, having that as more of a whole. And I think that's really important. And I just love that, you know, emotions and data. I think that's very succinctly put. I have actually a question which is maybe kind of, I don't think it's off topic, but it is a question. So when we spoke to, in our second session, we spoke to Martina Bragadin, who runs Spazio Meta in Milan, and she was saying how there are issues with, in terms of identifying what is waste and the ownership of waste and ownership of materials. And so that got me thinking in regards to yours, what when you have these abandoned buildings and abandoned spaces, how do you come across with the kind of ownership of them, and how does it sort of work out in terms of the ownership of the space, or the you know, do you get support from the like local authorities, you know, saying this is a space we are going to rent, or a parts of it given, and then making it also on another separate, making it safe, because I was thinking about that cave and how wonderful that space is, but also physically making things safe, because in materials you have to make things safe for other people to use. Spaces have a similar, you know, you can identify it similarly.
Yeah, thank you for this question that able me to I'd say describe a lot of our project. Well, the answer is very simple about the ownership of the space, of our space, because when I started Periferica, my parents that owns this space wants to how to say wants to sell it.
Right.
There was a poster outside, we sell this property, call this number. And I was in the at university and I was working about Periferica, but not in relation of this space, to regenerate this space. The name Periferica takes its name from the peripheral area of the city of Mazara, where we found out a lot of empty space where to localize our summer school and make some self-constructed structure, workshop with students and so on. So our focus is on the peripheral area, not on this space.
Yeah.
Our first proposal for the public administration was we are going to make a format of urban regeneration festival and summer school with universities, academics, students. Can you allow us to make some intervention with the local communities in these common areas, public space and so on? And we found a closed administration. They were not able to share the changement of the space with a private company, even if our approach was totally open, no? Was totally from the community.
Yeah.
So to regenerate this space was like a second choice. It wasn't the first.
Yeah.
We were lucky because I had with my family a property that we can use. It was totally dismissed. It was full of, I'd say, full of waste. It was unsafe, and to clean it, to transform it, and keep it safe has been a very, I'd say, a very gradual process.
Yeah.
Able just because we in parallel did a process of fundraising, complete fundraising through philanthropy and competition and so on.
Yeah.
So each service we develop in Periferica has been funded by with a competition we won. It wasn't from private money.
Yes, yeah.
There was also another question.
Just a question of sort of making the spaces safe. You know, like the underground place that you kind of uncovered.
Yeah. This is important to say. When I talk about the museum, I'm not talking about the complete surface, the complete space you've seen in the presentation.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a safe area, a little safe area. It's like a path. It's like a 50 square meters path underground that is safe. And you remember when I showed you the video about the wall that was hidden a space, no? Yeah. The path goes through this wall and from like 5 meters, then stop it, just to see the space in front of you. So you can see the space, but you can't go there for safe reason. Yeah. And you know, recently we developed a project that tried to solve this problem with technology. We developed how to say, a model, a 3D model that you can touch and how to say, and show some multimedia contents that show the hidden part of the cave without going there. Yeah. Okay. About accessibility. This is the safe field is we I would say we keep a lot of attention about it. of course.
Yeah, I just so we're running over time, but I had to get that in as a question because I knew that it was kind of connected and linked to a previous question. We're gonna have to close our session with you, Carlo, but thank you so much. And as my colleague Parvinder said, it's been really great that you've been so honest and open, because these realities, and I think something that many of us dealing with maybe when we scale from our individual practices to working in communities, and how can we then access sort of public spaces in our own countries, and kind of support there. And these points you've touched on, I think, are really good food for thought for us to think about, you know, if we want to try and do something similar, or maybe the processes and the discussions that we have to have with one another to help build that kind of community and that passion forward as well. So it's really great to hear and see the space.
Thank you.
So thank you. Grazie mille.
Thank you. Grazie, Zoe.
Yeah. So everyone, we're running a tiny bit over time. We'll take a 5-minute break. So let's say we'd be around back at 12 past the hour, wherever you are. And we will be talking kind of everything from technology to materials with our next guest, 2 speakers who are joining from different parts of the world, and I'm very excited to introduce their work to you. So thank you, and see you shortly. Thank you, Carlo.
Thank you again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's lovely to have so many questions from the previous speakers session, and really welcome to everyone. If you are not a speaker, if you're a member of the audience, please can you turn off your video? So Irena, we can see your video. If you can turn that off, please, that would be great. And welcome to Cassandra and Danielle. It has been like a long time coming. I'm so happy to welcome you both here. Thank you so much for being patient and you know, with our overrunning of time. But you know, we had so many great questions and points. It's really lovely to have you both here, and welcome.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. It's such a pleasure to be here, and so interesting listening to the last presentation and questions. So happy to wait.
That's amazing. Cassandra, you are in Scotland at the moment, and Danielle, you are in New York.
Yes,
right?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And thank you, Cassandra, for getting up and ready the presentation. We'll kick off right away.
Great. So yeah, I'm Cassandra Belanger. I'm currently based in Glasgow, Scotland, but I'm originally from Western Canada, from a town called Lake Country in British Columbia. But I'll kind of jump a little bit more into my background when we look at my practice. To start, I'm going to just hand over to Danielle, who's going to take us through the start of the presentation.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. As mentioned, I'm Danielle Elsner, coming at you from New York early in the morning. And we're going to talk today about zero waste design and practice, and a little bit about our collective, which is Zero Waste Design Collective. So as a whole, we're a global collective working at the intersection of education, practice, and industry. And we seek to transform the industry through education, community collaboration, and open dialogue around garment construction, pattern cutting, design methods, and innovative use of technology. We were founded back in 2020, and a lot has happened in the last almost 3 years. But basically, we all came together because we realized that we can't reach zero waste through individual action, and we needed to harness the power of the collective to design for good. So there are 4 of us as initial co-founders: Cassandra, who will talk about herself again shortly, Mylène Lergue, who's in France, Holly McKillen, who's in Delft, and myself, who's in New York. Since 2 members aren't here, we're just going to briefly talk about their work and show you a little bit about them. Mylène is a social entrepreneur, founder of Milan AVJC. She's an industry consultant, 3D designer, zero waste pattern maker, and educator. She has a line of home sewing patterns that are zero waste, which are really awesome, and she does a lot of work within the industrial fashion space. Holly McKillen is a PhD assistant professor on multimorphic textiles, systems and materializing futures, mouthful. And she's also a researcher, designer, writer, and educator. She co-authored the literal book on zero waste fashion design. And on the left, you can see this is a few of her patterns that are available called Make Use. They're still available open source online today, and it's a great resource for anyone trying to learn about zero waste design. Now, with Zero Waste Design Collective, community is really at the heart of what we do. We believe in cultivating a sense of togetherness through community building and collaboration. We believe that it's more sustainable to collaborate than to perpetuate competition amongst fashion industry players. So we provide the space to connect and share and discuss topics around zero waste design and about sustainability in general to people all around the world. So it's really cool that we have makers, designers, academics, home sewers, students, industry. It's a very wide range of people that are part of our collective. We have a lot of activations on social media. We do a lot of community spotlights where we highlight the work of people within our community. We host events, we have blog posts, we have interviews with designers around the world, we have tutorials, and we also share waste figures and ways of thinking about zero waste design in lots of different contexts. On our website, we have a community directory where it basically allows anyone who works in the space to upload them as designers or makers or what have you in this resource. And so if you're looking to collaborate with someone, or if you're looking for someone to help you with construction on one of your patterns, you can just go to this directory and find anyone around the world who's also working in that space, which is really awesome. And then we also have a zero waste pattern library where we have patterns from the international community. Some are free, some are paid, but basically if you design a zero waste pattern, you can upload it here and make it really easy for anyone to find and work with. So I'm going to pass it back to Cassandra to talk a little bit about what we mean when we're talking about zero waste design.
Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, so I thought we'd just start by looking at my favorite definition of zero waste fashion design, which is that zero waste fashion design addresses inefficiency in fabric use by reframing waste as an opportunity to explore the magic of making clothes. This is a quote by Holly McQuillan from her book, Zero Waste Fashion Design, that she co-authored with Timo Riisanen. And what I love about it is it's not just about, reducing waste, but it's also about the kind of explorative, creative element of a kind of fun approach to pattern cutting. So just to kind of show you visually what we mean when we talk about zero waste design. So on the left, we have a kind of conventional pattern layout. This is kind of more from a home sewing background. If you're making a garment for yourself, you can see all the kind of negative space between all the pattern pieces on the left, which would equate to 23% waste for this garment. So what we do is we're looking at pre-consumer waste. We'll talk about pre-consumer versus post-consumer in a moment, but we're talking about the pre-consumer waste, and what we're doing is we're kind of engineering the pattern so that there's no waste, no negative space between the pieces, so they kind of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. So we also just wanted to jump into a bit of the kind of context, like why it's important. So this is an industrial example that shows an average of 15% of the fabric that is wasted at the cutting stage. This is actually likely to be a large underestimate. A report in 2017 actually showed that it's closer to 25% per garment. And this is for every kind of cut and sew garment that is made in the industry. So that's 15 to 25% waste, cutting room floor waste per garment. This is an example of what's called a lay plan or a cutting marker for industry, and it shows the layout of 10 different t-shirts of different sizes. Now this is using the best optimization software that is available to optimize that negative space or that waste space, but we still have 25% cutting waste for this female t-shirt pattern. Of that cutting room waste in whole, it equates to about 60 billion square meters of fabric wasted annually based on 2015 figures, so potentially that's higher at this point. And of that 60 billion, over half of it goes to landfill, and often in the global south, in the countries that are making our clothes. So we're kind of exporting the waste also outside of the countries in which we're actually purchasing fast fashion. 25% of that's incinerated, which creates greenhouse gases, and then only 10% is recycled and 8% reused. Many of you may know, or maybe not, but fashion is one of the most polluting industries in the world. And an interesting stat is that 80% of the garment's environmental impact, or CO2, is generated by the fabric. So why are we then throwing away so much of this valuable material? One of the things that I think is really interesting to look at in this context is also the kind of current conventional design or product development process, which is very linear and very siloed. So there's not much kind of communication, understanding between all of the different kind of roles of the production process. And what I really love about zero waste is that it kind of brings all of that together. And in order for zero waste to really work, it has to be circular, it has to be holistic, there has to be good communication. And the designer, you know, is the pattern maker, is the possibly the sample maker. You know, there's a lot more working together and working as a team. So we really see at the Design Collective, we see waste as a design flaw, so something that we need to design out of the system. So I mentioned just talking a little bit about pre-consumer versus post-consumer waste. So pre-consumer, which is the waste that we generally are talking about, is the waste created during the design process. So, you know, basically, as soon as you create a design that is going to be conventionally pattern cut, you're going to end up with garment waste, or sorry, textile waste. Whereas the post-consumer is the garments discarded after use. And post-consumer definitely is worth a revisit here because it is a huge issue with really catastrophic impacts on the environment. On the left here, we have the Atacama Desert in Chile, where tons and tons of fast fashion is being dumped in the desert, obviously causing huge damage and often a lot of polyester clothing, which can take over 500 years to disintegrate. So yeah, it's really quite unbelievable. On the right, we have Accra Beach in Ghana and clothing that is just washing up on the beaches. Now, when I talk about post-consumer waste, it would not be complete without mentioning Liz Ricketts and the OR Foundation. Maybe get Danielle just to pop this link in the chat. There's 2 courses here we highly recommend from the Slow Factory. The Slow Factory is an open education platform, and they've got a really great series of online courses or workshops. And these are 2 that we recommend if you're interested in learning more about post-consumer waste. So fashion and waste and the history of resale markets. Liz Ricketts works in Kantamanto Market in Ghana, in Accra, which is said to be Africa's biggest secondhand market, and she's doing some really interesting work there. So I highly recommend checking that out. All right, so quite exciting. We've just recently launched our first e-learning course. Kind of the main reason we came together was to provide accessible online education to anyone who obviously can access the internet. And we have just launched our first course last week called Shifting Mindsets from Conventional to Zero Waste Design. It's a course that we collectively worked on over the last kind of 2 years. We look at things like what is zero waste design, the main principles. I mean, diving in a lot deeper than we have gone here. We have created a community online for you to talk with like-minded people. And there's also a section on terminology and myth busting, which is an important part of zero waste design. Will help you develop your own zero waste design voice. There's practical exercises where you will look at creating zero waste tessellations, and also we teach you a bit about zero waste analysis. This is just a little look at our platform, which is through the Thinkific platform, and I think we'll pop this link in the post as well. And it just kind of shows the different chapters there on the left. There is a free course you can sign up to which is just a welcome to the Zero Waste Design Collective, an introduction of us, who we are as instructors, and a bit about the collective. So if you're interested in checking that out, you can sign up for that for free. And we could also just pop that in the, maybe Danielle can do that if she's got a second before we move on to her, or I'll do that at the end of the session if you're interested in checking that out. I'm going to then hand back to Danielle, who's going to talk about her design practice.
Thank you. Yes, I just popped the link to our Thinkific page in the chat, so it should be in there. Yeah, so I'm going to talk briefly about my design practice, which is Decode. I've been working in the world of zero waste for about 12 years now, through many facets. From 3D to industry consultancy to design and manufacturing now. We have developed this kind of, the Decode ecosystem is what we're calling it. And I'm going to show you a project from one of each of these categories, from design, education, manufacturing, 3D design, and Web3, interestingly. So the first thing I'm going to just mention is Decode Supply, which is our zero waste, like blanks basics company. A lot of people think that zero waste design needs to be big and boxy and oversized and a bit crazy. But so the goal with Decode Supply was to create essentials, you know, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatpants that are very accessible. And on the next few pages, you can see some of our, you know, we have a little bit of our, you know, Decode design aesthetic, pink and blue, colorful, make the conversation really interesting and inspiring for people instead of being very down, because sustainability can be hard to talk about, as we all know. With everything that we make at Decode Supply, we use as short of a supply chain as possible. I'll talk briefly about how we're manufacturing in Brooklyn, New York. We just opened the facility in 2021, but we use fabric all sourced within the United States, milled in the United States. We use completely cellulosic components, so 100% cotton fabric, 10-cell lyocell thread, cotton labeling is what we're aiming to do. So everything can be reclaimed together and recycled or composted at the end of its life. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships that I've had over the last few years that are really important to share, because it is industry, but it's ones that I can also share the statistics on, which a lot of larger companies don't really want you to do because it calls out what you're maybe not doing the best. So this is an example of a project I did with Settlemeyer's Varsity Jackets in Portland, Oregon. They've been making varsity jackets for over 60 years, and they hired me to come digitize their patterns and then do a zero waste version. So you can see here on the left, the original Settlemeyer's pattern layout, and then below the zero waste revision. And with this, we had a 25% waste reduction in material, which is amazing. And back, 2 years ago when we did this, that meant that we saved $7.20 per jacket in just raw material costs. Now with inflation, that would be a lot more, of course, too. So not only do we have the financial savings from saving fabric, but we also, out of one bolt of fabric, are able to get an extra 10 jackets out of the same bolt of fabric. So that's huge, especially for a small branded manufacturer, being able to just like magically have 10 more jackets worth of material appear. So this is a really exciting project that we worked on. We did an artist collaboration launch when we launched the project, and this was our collaborative jacket. Where we, Settlemeyer's and Decode, we shared all the information on the waste, the usage, how much fabric was actually used. We had the actual pattern embroidered on the sleeve, and we got to really talk about the awesome, exciting nature of the jacket. So that was a fun one. Next, I'm going to talk about another project that I did back in 2020, which is zero waste scrubs. During the pandemic, with everyone else, we weren't able to go to school. I was in my master's degree at Royal College of Art in London. And so I decided to put my practice to use to make a set of zero waste scrubs that were open source and free to download. They still are on my website if you want to make some scrubs. But but the idea was that, you know, I designed it really quickly and released the pattern in 3 days. And I was like, it's not perfect, but, you know, if you have feedback, you can send it my way. So I was getting messages on Instagram at 4 o'clock in the morning being like, what's the seam allowance on this? So it was also a really nice interactive moment with a whole network of people working on this same thing. So it was a really fun experience, and it's currently actually in the original scrubs are in the Cooper Hewitt Design and Healing exhibition at the Smithsonian in New York. So that's another little fun nod. The original scrubs that I designed were to say thank you to the NHS, the National Health Service in London. And the idea was that I digitally printed NHS on fabric. And when you cut it up and resew it back together, it has these really awesome geometric cutout shapes. And so there's a really interesting, again, nod to the method of make. Moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about education. It's one of the things that I'm still most passionate about with zero waste design. Back in my master's, I designed a set of tools called the Zero Waste Pattern Masters, which were to help people design their own zero waste garments, or I could give you instructions to use these tools to make very prescriptive garments. You know, the original pattern master that every fashion student has in their toolkit was designed in the 70s, and it hasn't changed since then. So if we're trying to change the way that we're educating the next generation of designers to be more sustainably minded, why aren't we changing the tools that we're using to educate? So the idea was that I give you all the information from one zero waste pattern onto this one tool that you could print off. These were not, yeah, you could print it off and make a garment from one little tool. Along with these, I developed a lot of workshops. I needed to make sure that these made sense to people other than me. And it was a lot of fun showing it to different levels from, you know, my master's students down to undergraduate and slightly more novice designers. And it was really cool that, you know, kind of anyone could access this information. And these workshops are all still something that I'm developing to this day, which is fun. Next, I'm going to talk about the manufacturing side of what I've been doing. It's the most recent arm of the Decode universe, Decode MFG. So back in 2021, we had the opportunity to open a manufacturing facility in Brooklyn, New York. So we're at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, if anyone is familiar. And basically, it started because I've been a consultant with brands for the last couple of years. And still the largest hiccup in making zero waste a reality is the actual manufacturing and production. A lot of people don't think it's possible. You know, it's easy enough to make one or two or a couple zero waste garments, but doing it at a production scale seems very overwhelming, especially when people have been doing one thing one way for so long. So MFG is the space to actually show it, prove it, have numbers and metrics behind it. And then we also did things a little bit differently, where we hired really young people kind of right out of school and trained them up in this zero waste production method. And so we're also, you know, passionate about making more than living wage and those kind of things as well. So we're doing everything differently. Next, I'll just share, I use a lot of 3D design now. I use it as a storytelling vehicle because you can see the before and after pretty clearly. On the next slide, you can see, you know, the rendering, the flat pattern, and then what it ended up looking like IRL. So with a lot of the work that I do, I use graphics as a storytelling vehicle. You can see that when it's laid out flat, it's a happy, sad, smiley face. And when you cut it up and put it back together, you can see shapes coming and going from kind of all over. And 3D design does make it way easier to not oversample, which is always lovely. And then we're also using it to try to make some animations of, you know, this flat 2D pattern to a 3D shape and using it in that method as well. So just really impacting the storytelling of what we're doing. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Cassandra so she can talk about her practice.
Great, thanks, Niall. I have been in Glasgow for the last 12 years, and when I first moved here, I started up a business called The Stitchery, where I offer sewing courses and tuition in kind of generally teaching people how to make their own clothes with a focus on sustainability. So I've been doing that for about 12 years. I've had a studio in the past where I ran all of my workshops and classes and hired local designers to teach as well. But actually at the moment I am working through in Dunblane in Scotland at the Central Scottish School of Craft, which offers craft workshops. So not just sewing, but really trying to cultivate education around craft. So they do things like peg loom weaving. They've got portrait dolls, you can see here. They do spoon carving, basketry. Yeah, really interesting space. These are just some pictures of workshops I've taught. Really, really wonderful space overlooking a river in Dunblane. I recently did a patchwork class as well. Really kind of love patchwork and I've used it a lot in my practice. So a big part of what I'm doing, again, like Danielle, is really about education, teaching people to make their own clothes, which I find when you do that, it really enables them to understand why clothing shouldn't be as cheap as it is in fast fashion, and it kind of changes perspectives on, you know, buying quality and taking care of things, making them last. I'm also a founding member of Sustainable Fashion Scotland, and what we endeavour to do is connect the fashion community in Scotland together, and we do this through different ways. We run community calls, which are free on different topics. We do an annual magazine looking at sustainable fashion in Scotland. Anyone can submit work for the magazine and also do research as well. Now, this is basically the issue that I realized I needed to address in 2015 in my studio. I just was kind of appalled by the amount of waste that was coming from conventional patterns being cut by the classes I was teaching. And also, this is actually 3 garments from samples that 3 garments worth of waste from samples that I made for a pattern I was developing for a sewing pattern, sewing magazine called Simply Sewing. And I really wanted to look at how to address this. And I found out about a series of masterclasses put on by Zero Waste Scotland, which I ended up taking, and I learned about zero waste design, and I learned about Holly McQuillan's work actually at that point. So that was the original connection in 2015, and ended up hiring Holly to help me develop a zero waste pattern. So this was the original pattern on the left. You can see the kind of original drawing, really simple kind of A-line silhouette. And then you can see the space here, which would be the negative space or the waste space of the pattern. And what we did is we worked together to come up with a zero waste pattern. So you can see how the design actually changed, which is a really fun part of the process of zero waste design. Unfortunately, the paper pattern for this was too heavy to be mounted on the front of the magazine. So we weren't actually able to produce the zero waste pattern as part of this, but it's something, it was a learning curve as I'm sure, or I know Danielle's kind of worked through a lot of those. But yeah, so that's back in 2015 and the kind of first project. I then moved on to do a master's in design and fashion and textiles at the Glasgow School of Art. And as is kind of expected for a fashion program these days, you would have to develop a collection. So what I wanted to do for my collection is I wanted to focus on zero waste, and I wanted to try and make a collection using no new or virgin textiles. So I also wanted to look at this idea of embedded storytelling. So how do we interact with our clothing if it has this kind of embedded meaning? So for example, this was a skirt. I forgot to take a picture of it before I cut into it. This is a skirt that was my mom's when she was a teenager. This is a top that was my tutor's, some fabric from my grandmother, and then some samples from past garments that I'd made. Samples from past sewing patterns, actually. And what I did is I created what's called re-roll, which is a term that was coined by Zero Waste Daniel. And basically, you're creating new textiles from old clothing or old textiles. So what I did is I looked at some zero waste pattern development. So this kind of just shows my process of taking a basic pattern block and doing some conventional pattern cutting. So this is a methodology of zero waste pattern development where you're working from a pattern block. And this pattern actually was super quick. It took me about half an hour to develop the pattern just by tessellating the main dress pieces. And you can see the full pattern here. So it actually makes 2 dresses, which is sometimes a solution for zero waste pattern cutting, is to create more than one garment. So there's one dress here, and then the sleeves here and here, and then one sleeveless dress. I also wanted to, like Danielle was looking at 3D and computer-aided design, and wanted to look at eliminating the sampling process, which if any of you have a fashion background, you'll know that twalling or sampling using calico creates also a lot of waste. And the great thing about digital design like this is that we can kind of eliminate that process. And for me, because I was wanting to work with the textiles and patchwork that I created from kind of special garments, I didn't really want to cut into it to see what would happen, you know, with a zero waste pattern, like where would the placement of the pieces end up. You can actually see behind me the quilt for the textile here that I've kind of held on to. This was just an initial kind of play with textiles. And then I was able to basically import the textile, import the pattern, and cut and sew it on an avatar that was actually imported as a 3D body scan of myself, so I could also fit it on my own body digitally. And then this happened. If you're in the UK, you might have heard that the Glasgow School of Art has been on fire twice, not once, but twice. And I was a student at the time, and all of my work was stuck in the building across from the one that burnt down. So all of the glass at the front of my studio is kind of melted, and we had a period of 4 months where we could not access our work. So I had to rethink what I was doing, and I couldn't use the computer lab anymore that had the nice and powerful computer that worked the Clo 3D. So I looked at creating wearable toiles, which is something I always encourage home sewers to do. If they need to make a toile or sample to check the fit of something, why not make it out of some fabric that maybe it won't be perfect, but at least you can kind of hand it on to someone after, and it can be made, you know, be used in some way. So these were, this is what I kind of ended up doing as a compromise to having access to the computer. And then for my design for the degree show, sorry, because again, I didn't have access to all of my fabrics, I did a collaboration with my friend Lydia, who I'll mention more as I go. And she had an underwear company at the time called What Lydia Made. And we collaborated and made some bras and pants, again, from fabric. So for example, this fabric is Lydia's little sister's garment or dress when she was wee. And this is some fabric, actually just sample bits that I had. And then actually this is some fabric from my wedding dress from, when I got married. So again, just looking at that idea of embedded storytelling so that I could create kind of a smaller textile and have something to show at the degree show. I also looked at ways of creating textiles to the shape of the pattern. So instead of, a zero waste pattern, because I wanted to explore different ideas around creating zero waste in the development process of garments that wasn't just zero waste pattern cutting, because I work with home sewers a lot, and the kind of zero waste home sewing patterns is like quite a new space, and there's not really enough patterns out there for every kind of garment you'd want to make as a home sewer. So looked at other ideas like, creating textiles to the shape of the patterns that you need. So you can see on the back here, there's some uneven seam allowances. I actually had to use the sleeves. That's the sleeves here and here from my dress. And so, I ran out of fabric, so I used sleeves for my dress. And then I also looked at using or creating kind of interesting artwork or new textiles from old textiles, which we'll be looking at. So this is just some images of my final collection. You can see here my coat, which you saw some images of, And then finally, last couple images here is just some work I've gone on to do since my master's. So I did a residency in Egg in Scotland, a small island, about a year ago, and I looked at felting. So it was interesting to see Sanne's work earlier. It was kind of felting and looking at felting waste threads and stuff, and I created a little zero waste coat. And I've also gone on to do another collaboration with Lydia. Again, that's what Lydia made. You can check her out on Instagram, LYDIA, what Lydia made as well. And so she actually created this textile, and we've got a video. Again, I'll pop it into the comments. We've got a video that kind of shows the design process of the textile. And then I made this coat from a Berkey to Helmerson pattern for Lydia. And that is what we're going to look at next. So yeah, if you're interested in kind of learning more about the collective, our Instagram is ZWD Collective. I've got our LinkedIn there, and our TikTok is ZWDC with 2 underscores. So I'm going to just
you're going to switch over to the other camera. It is I'm really looking forward to this, and thank you guys both while you're setting up. You know, thank you for sharing about both of your practices. It's such a kind of it's like being in a lovely whirlwind of topics that I've been kind of like party to, and conversations that we've party to for so many years, for the last like 15 years of working. And in a way, I think I found Holly McQuillan first, and then found both of you via her work and that journey that you guys have been on. You know, as a collective as well as individually is incredible. And I guess I'll just ask a question whilst oh, Cassandra, no, you've got it set up, so I won't. I'll hold back on the question. And yeah, we can see your hands, and yeah, carry on, Cassandra.
Great. So this is yeah, this is the textile, like a kind of close up of the textile that Lydia created. So these are all scraps of fabric from her underwear company that she had, bras and pants, that she kind of saved up and then created this textile from. And I'm going to show you how. I'm just going to move the screen back. I think one. There we go. You can see a bit more. Is that in the right orientation for everyone?
That's perfect. Yeah. Okay.
So just to talk briefly about supplies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just demonstrate how to make a small little sample of this kind of new textiles from old textiles. So what we need for supplies here is some pins, some hand sewing needles, some thread. You can use some embroidery thread for the actual quilting, a ruler. I always keep a thread pot where I keep all my thread ends handy for the next project. And I've also got some leftover fabric, which we're going to use as binding. Some scraps to work with, which are actually, they do happen to match my nail polish. I know, it's ridiculous. And so these are scraps left over from the shirt that I made here, which is a shirt I made, sorry, a couple weeks ago, and it's from a conventional pattern. So I did have some scraps left over, which I knew I planned to make so that it was zero waste in the end. So I've got a backing fabric, the scraps, and then silk organza, which is the only fabric that I have struggled to source secondhand. Maybe trying to find kind of Enderville, something might be possible, but everything else is not virgin fabric. So you can work with different colors for your background fabric. You've got like a denim-y sort of fabric here, or white. I'm going to work on this heavier fabric. Oh, I've got some chalk as well. All right, so what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to just try and tuck in my waist. I have cut this into smaller bits. There's lots of different approaches to this. Lydia's fabric was kind of bigger pieces, and then a bigger backing and like quilted piece. But I'm going to just kind of keep these. I've cut these a little bit smaller. Going to place that over top and then kind of flatten it and pin in place around the outside, because what I'm going to want to do next is tack it. So hand tack it in place. Now this can be done using a sewing machine or by hand. It can be completely done by hand. and really basic sewing stitches. So basically a tacking or running stitch, which I'll be showing you, and also like a back stitch as well. So I think just 2 stitches, if I recall correctly, if you're doing this by hand. And I'm going to show you both. I won't demonstrate the machine approach today, but I'll show you what the machine approach looks like as well, some other samples once we get going. So just pinning in place, 1 more pin. So I'm just kind of pushing the fabric out of the way so that I've got an edge here. Okay, so that's pinned in place. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to just cheat a little bit, put this aside and bring in one that's kind of half done just for time. So you can see I've pinned here. Now what I've done is I've just threaded up a hand sewing needle and I've tacked just long stitches around the outside to hold that in place. So I'm going to just take my needle and thread here and continue, just show you tacking 1 row. I absolutely love hand sewing. I find it so therapeutic. And I love working with color as well. I actually explored the concept of color theory during my master's as well, particularly in regards to its impact on mental health. So how color can actually improve, you know, by working with color, how does that improve your how you feel? And I just found that initially I was working with like darker fabrics and stuff, and when I changed over to color, I really felt a difference in my kind of mood. So that's something really interesting that I'd actually love to kind of look into more.
That's so interesting to mention, Sandra, sorry to interrupt, but it's so interesting to mention because we don't actually think about that in terms of our kind of cultures and, you know, how maybe different communities would actually appreciate or access what we're doing. And I also have to say, good shout for getting the white background with the dark stitching, because that's such a key technique for showing stuff on video. It's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, so I finished that, did a little back stitch here. So I just kind of basically went back and then forward a little bit just to finish the stitch so that will hold in place like so. I'm going to clip my thread, put my thread in my thread pot, and stick that back in the pin cushion. Now that that's in place, what we'd want to do is our quilting, which again can be done by machine. I'm not going to be able to quilt this whole piece right now, but I'm going to just show you a row. Now you can use a ruler. You can quilt in any kind of pattern that you'd like, but we're going to keep it simple and just do a straight line, again just with a running stitch. That's not a very neat line, but this chalk is great. It's a soap chalk. One of my friends that I did my master's with is Korean, and she gave me a box of these and I love them. They actually just fade with heat as well, so
cool.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've taken some embroidery thread actually. So I've got some embroidery threads here. It's just a bit thicker, and I quite like the kind of density that you get from that. It's just kind of a bit more visible on the fabric. So again, so you can either start with a knot, and there's a little trick called quilter's knot. And you basically take your thread and you wrap it around 3 times, and then you pull the knot down the fabric. Oh. Where did it go? There we go. And you get a knot on the end. So I'll work with a knot, or you could just work with a back stitch. And I'm going to start here. And I'm going to keep my knot kind of in the edge of the bit here so that will catch in. And then I'm going to do longer stitches just to keep this timely. But you can then just hand stitch across, and you want to fully quilt your piece. So the quilting is the process of stitching the 3 layers together. So a lot of people don't understand the difference between patchwork and quilting. Patchwork is the piecing of the fabric pieces, and the quilting is the actual stitching that brings the 3 layers together. And again, this can be done by hand or by machine. It can be done by a domestic sewing machine, a long arm quilting machine, which is what Lydia used for her larger piece. And again, you can check out a video on how that's made on our Instagram. So I'm just going to do this one row. But what you would do is you would decide on a kind of pattern for quilting, and you would fully quilt across the whole piece. So that's just one row of stitching. You could do a few more rows, you could do some crisscrosses, you could do scallops, anything you wanted, but you'd quilt your piece just to hold it all down. And then I'm going to jump over to another sample, yet another cheat.
I love the preparation, it's so good.
So this just shows actually free motion embroidery using a sewing machine. So you can kind of draw with stitch, and I kind of followed some of the shapes of the textiles underneath. And so once that was quilted, I could then add my binding. So this is binding, it's 6 centimeters wide. And this is a technique used by quilters. And basically what you do is you fold your piece in half. So if we use this, it's folded in half, the wrong sides of the fabric together. And then we kind of lay it with the raw edges matching up and stitch. Now that's stitched by machine, but if you were stitching it by hand, you'd want to do a back stitch so that it's nice and strong. And then we do these lovely mitered corners. And what you do for a mitered corner is you basically kind of you'd stitch to the end, and then you place your binding running up so that your raw edges are running parallel, and then you bring your binding down and you kind of overlap it, creating a little bit here at the corner, and then you start stitching, and you then stitch down this side here, and you carry all the way around. And what that does is when you go to flip it out, it creates a really lovely corner on both the front and the back as well. So I can overlap that, get a nice corner. And then to finish, again, on to the next sample, you would then pin your binding in place. And on the back here, you can see I've done French knots, which is another quilting method, those little French knots. And then I've stitched on my binding. And here you can see there's a bit of a top stitch, but actually that comes from what's called a stitch in the ditch with the sewing machine. So I've stitched right in the ditch of the seam, so it's kind of invisible from the right side, making sure that you catch the back. Or you could just hand stitch it down. I've got 2 more samples before we wrap up to show you. These are both made by...
Okay, we'll have some. We'll maybe just do 5 minutes over, and if anyone's got any questions, we can answer them then.
Okay, sorry, I know we're running.
No, cool.
That's wrap up.
It's fascinating, so I'm loving it.
Yeah, so these are 2 samples made by students of mine in my zero waste wardrobe class. So you can see that's again using free motion embroidery and like a scallop pattern, and also the textiles are cut quite small, so you can kind of see the yellow one there. And then she's put a little loop for hanging like a pot holder. And then this, again, is a bit more of an abstract kind of free motion. He's stuck some threads and things like that as well. So yeah, quite interesting patterns on the back actually as well. So those are kind of 2 student finished samples. So that's it. If you have any questions as well, like if you want to try it at home, and you have any questions, feel free. You can email me, cassandra@zwdc.org, or DM us on Instagram. I'm happy to help as well. So I'm going to just stop sharing.
I did pop in the link for the making of the coat in the chat for anyone who does want to see it, just so you know.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing things that we can like. Well, one, I have to say that you guys are so on it with like connecting to each other and connected, you know, the links, that it's so easy to find, you know, what you guys are doing next. And that, I think maybe that's how it brings me to the point that this building of the community and making things accessible is it's such a focus of both of your businesses and both, you know, and the collective as well, that it's the accessibility for it is something that I can tell you spent so much time thinking about and probably discussing and saying, how do we make accessible here? Also the languages as well. I know, you know, Marlene, she's in France, and so there's also those probably questions about how do we, you know, even translate it and make it accessible to many people. Yeah, please do pop in any questions that you know have come through, and also obviously you guys will probably receive messages afterwards as well, like you often do on social media. I guess one of the questions that I had was sort of that initial thing that you were doing as individuals. When did, at this point where you thought this is a great opportunity to do the e-learning course, were you all sort of thinking about it individually, or maybe doing it in your own times with, you know, separate clients, and then thinking actually this is a point where we want to get together? Or was it, you know, how did that conversation come about? Because 4 people, 2 in the collective is you know, is one thing. 4 people is a whole nother ball game.
Totally. I'll let Cass take that one, because it was definitely her and Holly's inspiration that started the whole process.
Yeah, so I guess like really the collective started out of an interest of developing accessible e-learning, like accessible online learning, because when I did my master's, I mean, I was so fortunate that I had Holly as kind of like a friend and mentor during my master's, but I realized that, you know, there wasn't any kind of knowledge of really sustainable design or zero waste in my department. And if I wanted to learn myself, I was going to have to look to figure it out on my own. And I knew that a lot of other students would be in a similar position, or designers or industry, like wanting to learn how to do this. But yeah, at that point, it was like Holly's book had come out, but there really wasn't much kind of online. So the original intention really was to create e-learning. So when we came together as a collective, the plan was to create e-learning. Yeah, we just got a bit kind of maybe distracted.
We got a bit distracted on the way, but because there's so many fascinating things and opportunities that we had, and like there were presentations and workshops and community, and like there were just so much stuff that we want to do that we totally got distracted. But
I think that's something to be recognized then and talked about, is that we always have this drive that we have to do the next thing, and it always should be immediate. Almost when we have the idea, we should do it right then and there, but actually giving ourselves time and actually taking in the opportunities and maybe letting fate decide just maybe a tiny bit of when it actually is going to come out, because it will happen at the right moment. Maybe that's my personal belief, but I think that this is a, you know, a really good time for this to happen, because we've had so much time at home and you know, during lockdowns, and there are also more ways to disseminate your information and the courses that you're doing. And that point that you mentioned about the pattern master books, and or the pattern making traditionally, and I think that I've seen from in so many different countries around the world, they will have things which are books, you know, 20-30 years old that you're still using, but the amazing opportunity to be able to give those, I don't know, the publication side of it, I suppose is what I'm saying, whether it's learning or physical prints, are so important for actually sharing that information. And then also something else that I picked up on was that storytelling side that both of you are, you know, talking about. That also breaks down so many barriers of language and reasons for it. You can really show it there, and that really encompasses something actually that I've been talking to many different people around, is how do you share those stories in ways that many different people can understand. And even if it is, I mean, you know, it's Clo and all of these amazing CAD programs are wonderful, but being able to then translate that to that beautiful digital image to then something that is tactile is wonderful. Yeah, and I just so we've had a comment from Parvinder, is how do you feel about using this the word zero waste? And you know, because that's quite an interesting area of discussion.
Yeah, it's such a loaded question. I've had talks about this with a lot of people over the years where at one point I was like, okay, we need to rebrand zero waste because zero has such a negative connotation. Actually, zero, nothing, no substance, you know, like that kind of thing. But there's so much goes into making zero. But then I was like, rebranding it just because people have a negative connotation is wrong. You just need to kind of shift the narrative. But outside of that, on the more technical level, like zero waste is what we aim to achieve. Everyone doesn't actually make it zero all the time. And that's why we end up having minimal waste as an option or like an in-between step, like especially for industry, getting from standard to zero is something that's going to take massive overhaul. So at least getting to minimal waste, it's easier for people to understand. There's just some design tweaks and, you know, things like that. And even in our online course, we have a few things that are minimal waste versions and zero waste versions, and both are valid because they're both working towards zero. But that's my 2 cents.
Do you think it's a lot of pressure to say zero waste? Because you know how we have this whole, you know, zero carbon, zero, just the use of it, the term, it's a lot of pressure on you guys. To
a lot of criticism as well, actually.
Even so with our storytelling around the Decode brand and our zero waste blanks, they are actually zero, like not 99%, not 99.8. And everyone's like, there has to be something left over, and there's not. And it's just, the disbelief is pretty funny sometimes too.
Yeah, but I think that's really interesting, is it? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh no, so I was gonna just say though, I guess one of the things is that I guess people do take zero quite far. Like if it's zero waste, around the wording, it feels like an absolute. And how far do you take that to the materials, how they're grown, how they're, you know, and then there lies the question about which part of this process you're looking at, because of course the material that you're using, you could use all of it and it's absolutely zero waste. But if you track how it came to that material, I think it's so complex, isn't it? And it is around those topics like zero carbon, zero, and I actually liked your term minimalist waste, or something that kind of feels a bit more open, you know. I don't know, I don't think, you know, when we started this, we were saying that language is a part of circular cultures and this program and things like that. And I also, you know, we have a lot of debates in Europe about this word circular, which doesn't exist, or sustainable doesn't exist in certain dictionaries actually, or contexts. So it's a journey that I'm on as well with people saying, you know, how do we look at these terms like zero? I think we should question them all, like, or open up dialogue around them. Zero, circular, sustainable, recycling, just so we broaden our vocabulary around them. But yeah, it was great hearing you guys. Thank you so much, and I'll give it to Zoe.
No, yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing, I'm not actually, I did double check with Anna if the recording is still going or not, because I saw there was it stopped and then it started again, so I don't know. You'll have to let me know. Yes, it is. Nice. Because we can just join that, tag that on. So I guess the kind of, maybe it links also to Sanne's talk at the start, was around tools and accessibility to tools. I mean, I know, Cassandra, what you're doing in terms of, actually what you're both doing in terms of the accessibility to a space where you can come and use those tools, but also the kind of the 3D tools, the CAD tools as well. Have you had conversations or feedback or comments from people about the accessibility of those in terms of, you know, building the e-learning course, and how, I guess, how that can go on in the future, the access to the physical tools as well as the online tools?
We're actually quite a good team, Danielle and I, because I'm much more of like the analog approach and Danielle's more of the digital approach. I used Clo during my master's for a bit with Holly's support, but I actually find it quite difficult to learn. So I do a lot of kind of analog, working with paper and fabric, and and Danielle's more, not that she doesn't do that, but is more on the digital side. So yeah, I think both approaches, in order to be really accessible, because 3D is not for everyone, having both options, and that's something we have in our e-learning. You have a paper approach, you have Illustrator, you can use Illustrator to play with the patterns, and you can use Flow 3D files as well. So we kind of try and give different options. And even thinking about, like, if someone doesn't have a printer at home, we explain how to like trace the pattern off the screen so that you can use it. So just trying to think about all eventualities so that people can use, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Danielle.
Yeah, I think the 3D world is becoming a lot more accessible to people, which is awesome. Because in the past, anything like the 3D renderings and patterns and all of that would have been very industry focused and very technical. But like the companies like Clo that are making it accessible to individuals, and like there's a free 30-day trial for Clo that anyone can try, so it means that people can experiment and see if it works for them or not before like actually jumping in feet first. So yeah, I think that the opportunities, and even a lot of the new technology that's happening around AI that's accessible to everyone, it's so mind-blowing, and everything's moving so fast in that direction. That it's a really interesting time to be doing this kind of work, and I think it's really important that we have people like us who are trying to help shape the narrative as well around how we use 3D and these like future focused tools.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's that combination of being able to have these huge open discussions and kind of take everyone's feedback. I mean, I saw you guys the other night on Instagram Live, and that opportunity to be able to have a conversation as well as receive comments and feedback simultaneously could have, it could take you off in such different conversations. And when we were talking with Carlos, the speaker before, about having those interviews with the community, having those discussions to help you guide where you need to go, I mean, that must have been a massive part of your process as well as to building the course, because at the end of the day, access to knowledge and that community building is, you've built this whole course towards it. And I just think it's really, really fantastic that you guys have achieved this. And, I'm going to be on the course like next, like waiting and get, back to tactile,
oh my gosh, yeah.
I haven't seen any other questions, and I could ask loads and loads and loads of questions, so I won't. But if there's anything that you guys want to like close on or finish on, then we can let me know when we can close up after that.
I guess just say thank you to everyone who's here. Like, it's the community that really makes these spaces, and we're really grateful for people that are interested in learning. So yeah, thanks for showing up, and hopefully you took away something valuable that you can kind of incorporate into your life in some way. So
yeah, and all the comments of encouragement are also very, very nice and helpful and refreshing. So thank you everyone for your support. It's much appreciated.
That's really good. I do actually have one question. Are you thinking about, will you put them into different languages, or even if it's subtitles? Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking
100%.
about this community, and I'm thinking about it. Everyone's going to go, yes, but maybe my English isn't that great, or my Spanish isn't that great. And I'm just,
Yeah,
we're very aware and like focused on that as the next evolution. Now that we've launched, we're like, we can take a breath for a minute. Okay, and then on to the next thing.
have a break.
Yeah.
So French will be the first language we're going to put out through Milan. And then we're actually potentially going to be looking for partners, people to partner with to develop into other languages and stuff. That's something we'll probably talk more about over the next year. But yeah, definitely 100%.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, guys, and thank you everyone for staying with us and for joining from wherever you are. And it's just been, honestly, this whole 3 sessions have been so wonderful, and they will be on the British Council Spain YouTube as recordings. And really just thank you for just caring and sharing, and oh, hi Wesley. Hi Wesilia, she's in Mozambique. Yeah, so it's really, really good to yeah, have you all here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
And thank you to all the British Council teams, by the way, in Romania, Cristiana and Katinka, and in Madrid, Anna and Christiana, and also Parvinder in the UK. Thank you for all you guys' support. And this has been a really great pleasure to yeah, to co-curate with you all.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.